Well, before introducing my next guest, I feel it absolutely essential to just give a bit of background as to why I thought our next guest, Christopher Sorensen, is so extraordinary. And I'll do that by sort of linking together some of the conversations that we've just had. We've heard from Hank Rogers that we can actually do this. And we heard from the Danish Consul General that how successful a country like Denmark has been in terms of decoupling. If you look at some of the graphs for Denmark, they've been able to decouple GDP growth from carbon emissions. And it's from some of these policies that started, way back in 1970s that we've heard about. And with the last panel, we've been hearing about this hybrid approach using different technologies. Now, when I went to the UN, it followed a disastrous climate catastrophe we had in Grenada, so my focus at the UN was at climate. I successfully recruited after that to go to the World Bank, and it was a Danish person who recruited me, because prior to that, people didn't talk a lot about climate change at the World Bank for a while. And but the World Bank under Zelig, they were focusing on this, and because Denmark was going to be hosting the COP in 2009, where we expected, there were very high expectations. One of the key commitments coming out of Denmark was to support islands with funding for renewable energy. So in the COP the following year, we actually put together a small fund with 15 million from Denmark and 15 million from Japan. We made great progress there. The thing that was missing, I think, in terms of the progress we made then and where we are now, is that we didn't have somebody like Christopher Sorensen to tell us how to stitch it all together and actually go from this, coming out with the policies to actually making it happen. So I was fascinated and very exciting when met you yesterday. You've had 30 years experience in the field. You've had this background in systems engineering at Accenture in New York. Your journey took you all the way to Abu Dhabi and Masdar City. Anybody been to Masdar City? The way they've been, anyone actually seen it? Extraordinary way they've been able to take local knowledge and high-tech knowledge and bring it all together, for that. And the cluster-based approach that you espouse, it's so vital and important. Everyone talks about the success of clusters, Hollywood, Silicon Valley. Everyone's trying to do the same, to repeat those successes. But your approach with clusters in the energy space, bringing together industries in a sort of circular cluster, as it were, I find very exciting, and is the sort of thing that we're not doing enough of in island states to actually make things happen. So that plug-and-play approach that you described, this is such a breath of fresh air. Could you tell us a bit about the approach that you've been taking, your inspiration from it, and how we as islands can benefit from these approaches that you're taking as founder of the Greener World?
Thank you very much for a kind introduction, and also enjoyed the inspiration from your journey as well. And listening to all of the islands together today, we have shared challenges out in the world. And been working in Denmark the last 20 years, a little respite in Abu Dhabi, with 8 years building a Masdar with the leadership there under the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And the idea in Denmark, which is a group of islands, by the way, Copenhagen is actually on an island. There's only one peninsula, the rest is all islands. So we have the same challenges. And the lucky thing is that the Danes like to get together and get determined and make things happen for themselves and then for the world. And I was so privileged to utilize that determination and that consensus building in Denmark to rethink the ecosystem of energy and industry. And the reason we had that opportunity was literally a greenfield. I don't know if we can get one on the screen. But we had a greenfield opportunity. Next one. There we go. So if you look at this site, it's an outlying area. They were losing population. There was a brain drain. Urbanization was really tearing society apart. And what do we do about this? How do we secure the future for this region? And this also an island area. It's a peninsula with a lot of islands. So the idea was, how do we get all the stakeholders to agree on an aspiration to begin with, because that creates longevity, it creates engagement. And then number two, how do we create the recipe which everyone can participate in and create that mutual incentive for everyone? So we came upon this model, of course, as a short version of how we determined this. But the idea generally was, well, place-based development and equitable results. So place-based, we have wind, we have solar, we have biomass in this region. How do we create energy out of this? And then instead of putting that into a grid, why don't we create our own designed green growth? Use that resource we have on site, those natural resources, to create our own designed community of green industry with future-proof jobs, but also new competencies, new research. So we created a pull for these industries to move in by our selection criteria, not just by happenstance or the lowest cost of process, but because we wanted those types of industries to appear in the region. You're actually designing your future together as a community, as a technologist, and as educationalist, and as part of, providing for your children. So this design of an ecosystem happened, we started in 2019. It was just green grass, as you see all around the area. And in 2024, this was all in operation. So again, Hank, I think you referred to this, how do you incentivize change? We created both an economic, a community, and an educational reason to do this. So the municipality joined in, the local energy company joined in, and a lot of these existing industries like feedstocks for animals, farming, dairy, protein extractions from marine elements, and providing two types of pyrolysis, one for plastic waste and one for agricultural waste, plus hydrogen production to replace natural gas and other elements, and doing the water cycle of all these industries, treating it at the level which each industry needed, and using the surplus energy of each site to recycle among the other processes. That meant by shared contribution, shared reward, we could reduce actually the lowest cost of energy for every one of the participants because we invested in a shared infrastructure. So the trick was to create a shared infrastructure. That means the industries don't have to invest in that themselves. You create a shorter time to market for them, and they don't have to figure out how to do CO2-free industry because it's already done for them. So they just plug and play. And that turned out to be a high-level incentive. We had factories moving from England to the site in Denmark. We had new industries which didn't exist before, like extracting proteins from starfish and marine kelp and so forth, that didn't exist before. It replaced soya imports from South America for the local farmers, and they created a business out of that. So they can actually export non-GMO proteins now to other farmers around the world from this process. So just shortly said, designing your own ecosystem, considering the fact that you want to create equitable growth, equitable industry, and then mutual incentives, it turns out a cooperative model is better than a competitive model. And we're proving that out as we speak.
This cluster approach that you've just described here, anybody read, Michael Porter, Competitive Advantage of Nations? These clusters take decades to build. You get one factory coming in, and maybe 5 years later, someone else says, we'll take an offtake from this stuff you're producing. Someone else comes in as a supplier. This thing takes decades. And this really is a solution for development. This is a rural area that you spoke of, but this is what we need very much for islands. I mentioned Silicon Valley. We've got AI coming out of Silicon Valley now, but that goes back to the 1950s with Fairchild Semiconductor and the space industry. And that took decades to make all of that happen. What we have here and what we've just heard from you, Christopher, is a plug and play, make it happen, within a political cycle, which is hugely refreshing. Could you say a little bit about, in the time left, the sort of key components that you would see to this and the financing and how we can take this type of model to an island and create a cluster in a fairly short space of time?
Well, the nice thing which is encouraging about islands, which this is an island function, it's a closed loop, but it also connects to the grid and provides balancing services. So there are a lot of additionality to this model. But if you take an island, you know, one of the things was mentioned, the marine ecosystem is available all around. And that's a huge part of this cluster as well. There's a lot of interest in the waste to energy. That's also part of the design of this. So the whole idea is to go with the community, with the available resources, and design then the solution for that particular site with the particular community and political and industrial leaders on that area, and then determine, okay, what do we aspire to? So the first maybe 3 to 4 months is what I call aspiration coaching. So helping those people to aspire to something they don't know they can reach. I think a Hawaii example is great. And then turn that into the mechanisms which create incentives in each person's language. Because a financial investor has a different language than the community activist. And they each want the same thing, they just don't realize it can actually be put together in a constructive way and become equitable. So I would say that the most critical factor is the community engagement, the stakeholder engagement, and the desire to do something significant and to manifest it. That's number one. And the rest is the technology exists, and more are on the way, like we heard today. So you can add these technologies into the process as you go, but you can start with everything we have today, and within 5 years, make one of these ecosystems wherever you are in the world.
I'm just mindful that we're slightly over time, and Matt's getting up. So I'd like us to end on this note and picking up on your keyword, manifest, right? Because we have a lot of ideas, you know, that we've discussed. We want to be able to manifest. So when we meet here again, you know, next year, we can talk about our pathway towards manifestation, where we are with some of the partnerships we've been able to create here. So, Christopher, thank you very much. Look forward to working with you and others on this. So thank you. Please,
thank you as well.
Christopher.